dishonest actors on the right are trying to paint Joe Biden's VP pick, Kamala Harris, as some kind of leftist radical, which honestly wouldn't be so great. Would be great, and unfortunately she isn't, but it's okay. I think it's important to get into the details about who she is as a VP pick. And the truth is, the accusation that she's a radical leftist couldn't be further from the truth. Let's start with Vice President Mike Pence's statements on Kamala Harris just yesterday.
I mean, we all know, look, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party have been overtaken by the radical left. So given their promises of higher taxes, open borders, socialized medicine, and abortion on demand, it's no surprise that he chose Senator Harris to be his running mate.
Well, Mike Pence isn't the only person who is trying to spread this ridiculous narrative. You had Ari Fleischer also tweeting this ridiculous statement: Biden-Harris is a weakness that will acquiesce to the far left of the Democratic Party. There is nothing moderate about either. Ari Fleischer, by the way, for those of you who might not know, was the press secretary for George Bush. Also, we have this tweet coming from a man who's very uncomfortable at the thought of providing pleasure to women. Let's read what Ben Shapiro had to say. Kamala Harris is a far left radical with a shocking inability to connect on a personal level. She's rehearsed and mechanical. Her record is wide open to serious attack. She adds nothing to the Biden ticket other than checking some boxes for the Twitter blue checks. Now, again, she's not a far left radical. It's laughable, especially when you consider this headline coming from CNBC just yesterday after it was announced that she is, in fact, Biden's VP pick. Wall Street executives are glad Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris to be his VP running mate. That was written by Brian Schwartz, who spoke to various executives from Wall Street. Financial advisory firm Signum Global, he writes, is already telling its clients that the choice of Harris reinforces the notion that the Democratic ticket is more moderate than progressive. Charles Myers, the founder of Signum and a former vice chair of Evercore, told CNBC that the choice eased the nerves of clients who are questioning whether Biden would stay in the moderate lane. So again, just some more proof that this is a very moderate ticket. There's no question about it. And with that said, I want to go to the next video of Joe Biden getting asked yet again what he would do if Medicare for All legislation landed on his desk as president.
The pandemic has exposed, as I've mentioned, so many weaknesses in the healthcare system. The most vulnerable, often Black and brown communities, have been handling much of the financial burden. Before the pandemic, you were against comprehensive single-payer system. Now, if Medicare for All came across your desk as the pandemic has hit so hard, would you veto it?
It's not going to come across my desk, but look, the pandemic has not only torn through our nation, devastating families and wrecking economies, it's exacerbated some of the worst inequities. I'm going to fight for health equities, but you don't need, the quickest way to get that is for Black and Latino Americans to have access to the Obamacare with a public option. That's the quickest way we can get everybody covered.
But hasn't this pandemic and the tsunami of layoffs shown the limits of private health care that is tied to employment?
No, it hasn't, in my view. There's countries that have, in fact, single payer systems that hadn't helped them very much either. The question is, what do we do about rallying the pandemic and treating those who are affected by it? Everyone who's affected by the pandemic is access to free care for anything having to do with that pandemic.
I thought it was interesting that, even despite all of the flaws that we see in our healthcare system right now, he was still unwilling to say that he would support Medicare for All if that legislation, it would have to be bipartisan legislation. If it ended up on his desk, he would not commit to avoiding a veto of that bill. And it just blows my mind. And when he talks about countries with single payer healthcare systems that are struggling, is he talking about the UK? Is that what he's talking about? a system that's been attacked by the conservatives in the UK, that's been defunded. There have been attempts to dismantle it. Is that what he's talking about? Because it's the same line of attack that we hear from conservatives when it comes to other programs like public schools, for instance. They do whatever they can to defund it until the schools start failing. And then they point to the schools and say, oh, look, public education is failing. Would you look at that? We need to privatize education. Same line of attack. But anyway, far cry from a radical leftist.
Yeah, I mean the argument that he made that, well, no, clearly the fact that we have this private health insurance company or private health insurance system where your insurance is for the vast majority of Americans tied with your employment, and a pandemic came and 40 million Americans lost their jobs. No, that doesn't demonstrate anything bad about the system. That's insane that you could say that. But to then make the point that no, some countries that had single payer healthcare did poorly. I presume he's talking about Italy there. That is exactly what the right was saying. They didn't do poorly because of that. Italy did poorly because they didn't respond immediately to the pandemic and they have a very old population. All of that is abundantly clear. To hear the far left radical Joe Biden using the same talking points that Mike Pence and Donald Trump were banning about in the first couple months of the pandemic, it's insane. And to have that as potentially, the administration that's going to be determining what the future of American healthcare looks like, and then be told that it's radical is insult to injury.
Well, one person who actually threw cold water on this radical leftist narrative was conservative Chris Wallace on Fox News. So let's take a look at that final video.
The fact that Liz Cheney and the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal editorial page don't like her, who among the Democrats would they have liked? The answer is they're kind of struggling. And remember this also, and it's something I think that's going to get, in fact, it hurt her in the primaries, but it's going to help a little bit for all the president's talk about the idea that Biden is kind of an empty vessel and that this is his political living will, and she's a far lefter. I mean, she was a prosecutor in San Francisco and then the Attorney General of California, and in fact lost points during the Democratic primaries because of the fact that she was pretty tough on crime and she supported the death penalty, even though personally she's against it. That's going to make it a little bit harder for the Republicans to say that this is a far left defund the police ticket.
So look, I just think it's important for people to know the facts. I mean, obviously our audience, the vast majority of people who watch this show are clear on the policies that Biden and Kamala support. I do believe that getting Trump out of office is important, incredibly important. He's a complete and utter disaster. So for all of the more moderate Democrats who might be watching this show, relax, everybody calm down, take a deep breath. I'm not gonna lie to the audience about what this ticket represents, but I also understand the importance of getting Donald Trump out of office. You can be nuanced when it comes to these issues, and you can focus on getting progressives elected in these congressional races, which, to be honest, we're doing a pretty good job.
Want to win a free electric scooter? Well, our partners at Aspiration and Zoom Electric are making it possible. All you have to do is head to tyt.com/greensummer for your chance to win.